Thanks, Chair. Minister, a range of farmers and environmental groups have raised serious criticisms about negative environmental impacts, negative impacts for farmers, from the so-called CAP simplification which the European Parliament voted for yesterday. They say it will increase farmers' vulnerability to extreme weather events, that it guts environmental standards, and that it is a race to the bottom. MEPs, including from Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, rejected an amendment to cap payments so that 80% of the payments to farmers no longer go to just 20% of the beneficiaries. Do you have any concerns, or does the government have any concerns about all of that?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Deputy Murphy. So the proposed amending regulation, which was presented by the Commission, is focused on simplification and also to reduce the burden on farmers, as well as to provide flexibility to Member States to address issues affecting farmers arising from climatic conditions or other adverse weather events. While there are changes to the Good Agricultural and Environmental Conditions, or GAECs as they are known for short, my department, like all ministries across Europe, must apply these standards at an appropriate level for our own national situation to protect our natural resources, including, importantly, soil health, air, water quality, as well as habitats and biodiversity. The changes proposed include moving the requirement to have a minimum share of land devoted to non-productive features from GAEC 8 into eco-schemes, and that was one of the proposals approved. Already here in Ireland, we build on the basic 8.8 requirement within our eco-schemes, and we've implemented a more ambitious space for nature requirement than the minimum required. The majority of farmers chose to back this ambition as well, picking an enhanced space for nature as their eco-scheme practice. Over 100,000 farmers have chose to go to full 10% devoted to space for nature on their farms. Other changes proposed include adjustments to GAECs 5, 6, 7 and 9, allowing Member States more flexibility in order to address specific problems in the application of those GAEC standards. And on GAEC 7, on crop rotation diversification requirements for the tillage sector, flexibility is required given the weather conditions this year. While an exemption for farmers with less than 10 hectares from controls and penalties under conditionality is also proposed, it is crucial to understand that all of the legal obligations on these farmers would still apply. Any breach of the laws in relation to pollution, habitat destruction and hedgerow removal will continue to be prosecuted by the competent authorities. And the experts in my department have carefully considered the proposed changes, and I believe the proposal will provide more flexibility for farmers while still maintaining the objectives of those standards. Irish farmers have demonstrated, Deputy Murphy, their commitment to the environment and have committed themselves to a range of environmental actions through eco-schemes and our results-based environmental schemes such as acres. It is my intention to ensure that Ireland's CAP strategic plan continues to back family farms and support them to meet their environmental conditions too.
Thank you, Minister.
Commitments too.
Thanks. I presume the Minister knows, agrees, that we are in a climate and biodiversity crisis. And yet the European Commission, with the support of the Irish Government, with the support of the three big parties in this Dáil, have just agreed to delete, weaken or make voluntary several of the GAECs, the Good Agricultural and Environmental Conditions. That includes, and you listed some of them, minimising tillage to prevent soil erosion, ensuring minimal soil cover, crop rotation, areas to enhance biodiversity and protection of permanent grassland in Natura 2000. To quote Birdwatch Europe, the European Parliament has paved the way for anti-democratic, anti-environmental and above all anti-farmers legislation, yielding to a powerful agri-business lobby that serves only a few. Food security, the future of farmers and citizens were sacrificed for the sake of short-term profits and political calculations. And your government seems to agree with that.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Yeah, you don't seem to have recognised yet the great work that is happening at farms here in Ireland, Deputy Murphy, and the work that continues, and give proper recognition to the real commitment that family farms across this country are demonstrating to the environment and indeed to tackling the biodiversity challenge that we have, not just in this country, but we see in many other countries as well. Last year, or in 2022, we saw a reduction in emissions from Irish agriculture. In 2023, I'm very confident when the figures come out, we'll have seen a reduction in emissions as well, and that's a reflection of the work that farmers are undertaking at farm levels. For example, over the last 2 years, and you may not be aware of this because I've never heard you refer to it. Over the last 2 years on Irish farms, we've seen a 30% reduction, 30% in 2 years alone, of the use of chemical fertiliser. And that has been achieved alongside maintaining food production, and has contributed to emissions reduction. And that's just a reflection of the massive work that's happening at family farm level. And we do have family farms in this country. I hear you regularly refer to industrial farming, Deputy Murphy. That's not what we have in this country. We have family farms, which are run with the help of families and which produce food in a really sustainable way. And some of the steps been taken at European level in the last while are to provide the appropriate flexibility to farmers to address the weather challenges that we've seen not just here but across Europe over the period of time. But the work continues in terms of making sure we're contributing to the climate change challenge too.
I give a lot of credit to the work that small farmers are doing. People who are struggling and who are not supported by your government. But what I don't give is any credit to your government, because your government just simply does the bidding of the agri-business lobby at the expense of the environment and at the expense of small farmers. And you like to hide the reality of farming behind the phrase of family farms. Obviously, yes, the vast majority of farmers in this country struggle or are genuinely small family farms. Look at where CAP money goes. Top 8 recipients of CAP in Ireland received over €200,000 each. Larry Goodman, is he a family farmer? John and Peter Quealy, the owner of Dawn Meats, receiving €191,000. Are they family farmers? Is that who you're representing? And do you agree with the fact that 80% of the money goes to 20% of the farmers? So you pretend to represent the interests of ordinary farmers. You don't. You represent the interests of big, massive farms and big agribusiness. That's who you serve, not ordinary family farmers, and they are failed. They are failed by what you're doing here. Listen to what organisations representing 50% of farming organisations say. The proposed simplification rules will only exacerbate discontent in the farming community. They neither support farmers in increasing their resilience, nor do they address the real issues that farmers face, which is the lack of fair prices for their products and the lack of a decent income.
Deputy Murphy. Minister.
Yeah, listen, Deputy Murphy, you'd like to portray that. You peddle that story. And that somehow the government is, and not just government, but that somehow Irish agriculture is industrial and not family farm as we portray it. That's totally false.
Biggest part.
And the reality has been,
most of it isn't.
In terms of if you've been paying any attention to what I've been doing as Minister over the last 5 years, you'd have seen that I've delivered a CAP programme which has increased by 50% the funding we're giving to farms, and we're directing that particularly at smaller and medium-sized farms. So, for example, I've introduced front-loading of payments on the first 32 hectares of payments that a farmer will get, so that we're reallocating funding specifically to smaller and medium-sized farmers to encourage farmers to stay in farming. I've also reduced, if you probably haven't picked this up either, Deputy Murphy, I've also reduced the maximum payment that any one farmer can get in CAP payments from what would have been over 150,000 in the outgoing CAP to 66,000 now under this CAP. So no farmer now at the conclusion of this CAP, no farmer at the conclusion of this CAP will be able to get a payment of more than 66,000. And that's because we want to back and sustain what we have in this country, which is family farming, and which you constantly in your portrayal try to misrepresent and do a total disservice to.
Thank you, Minister.